Hello one, hello all, and welcome to episode 2 of the Figure Fourcast. My name's Sam Gardner, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friend and compadre, Damien Cross. How are you doing, Damien?
I'm doing good. Excited to be recording a second episode. The first one was a lot of fun. Let's hope the second one is as well.
It sure was, and obviously in the first episode we previewed the Royal Rumble, and now we're very much in the fallout of the Royal Rumble. We definitely predicted a couple of things that were going to happen, but some things shocked me, and I know they shocked you too.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting pay-per-view. So I think we should just jump straight in and discuss the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, let's do that. But firstly, I think we should definitely mention that I was the winner of the predictions and that you are going to have to do the forfeit.
Yes, unfortunately, I did lose the predictions. I think I went a little bit too much with my heart, not enough with my head on some of those, especially the surprise entrance. Um,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
you know, it could be a lot worse. Thankfully, I'm saying that now, obviously before recording the punishment, but thankfully they didn't pick leg waxing. I feel that would be a lot worse of a first one. I'm
Yes.
cautiously optimistic for the punishment, which can reveal if you haven't seen it on our Twitter or Facebook, that my punishment is the Royal Rumble Challenge, which, as decided by Sam, will be that I have to eat 30 Baby Bell cheeses.
In honour of the women's Royal Rumble winner, Bianca Belair, obviously. With the bell in there. Belair, Baby Bell. You see what I did there?
I appreciate the joke. I'm sure everybody else will as well. I have a total of 45 minutes to complete the challenge. I don't think I'm going to need the full 45 minutes. We just set that because it was Royal Rumble. I did try one Baby Bell the other day, just because it's been a very long time since I've actually eaten them, and I just wanted to kind of have a memory of what it was before I jumped in on the challenge.
Sure.
And it definitely dipped my confidence a little bit in this challenge.
I feel like it's going to be a grower, definitely a grower and not a shower. It's one that you go in thinking, oh, this is easy. You'll get 10 Baby Bells in and you'll be struggling. You'll get the Baby Bell sweats.
Probably.
Let's get into the Royal Rumble then. For me, it was actually a really, really good show. A lot better than I thought it would be. What did you think overall?
So when we was watching it, there was a teeny tiny bit of disappointment. But when you've made predictions and you've got something you're set on, and that doesn't happen, that's where you come from. I watched it again the day after, and I really enjoyed it, and I liked everything. It's just that, don't know whether it was because it was late. Obviously, in the UK, it didn't finish until gone 4 o'clock in the morning. Kind of takes something out of your enjoyment just a little bit if it's not what you want. But I really liked the Royal Rumble this year. It's always a good show. Only thing I really didn't like about this year's Royal Rumble was the way they handled the number 30 entrant.
Yeah.
Now, they announced Natalia was going to be the number 30 for the women's on backstage the day before.
I think so, yeah.
Which kind of felt when we was watching it that there was going to be some twist. They had Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler kind of attack her as they came out, and we were thinking, are they going to do like a Ronda Rousey twist here? Because obviously there's that friendship. You kind of like just in jest because I'd predicted it, but it did feel like something was going to happen there, and then she just got up, got in the ring, and it carried on like nothing had happened, and that just kind of felt like, what was the point? There wasn't really much that happened with Natalia. So the whole she's won the rights to enter number 30 didn't really add anything to the story of the Royal Rumble, which was a little disappointing. And then when we had the men's, we had Braun Strowman enter at number 30, which you was a little bit disappointed with when we was watching it live.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're gonna do the Braun Strowman pop, he's not been on TV since I think November, just after Survivor Series. Sorry. So if you're gonna do that, what's the point of bringing him back on SmackDown? And yeah, it just seemed a bit deflating to me. I thought it would have been a good opportunity, even if it was Seth Rollins coming back at 30. You would have had a bigger sort of reaction than Braun Strowman, who you already know is back in the picture. That's just my view on it, but I don't know. What did you think about the 30 slot?
I felt exactly the same. Like if they hadn't shown Braun on SmackDown, if the main event, it was the main event of SmackDown, I believe, the week before,
Yeah,
when just everybody started coming out and they were having that classic pre-Royal Rumble moment where everyone's kind of attacking each other to show who's the most dominant one.
yeah.
If Braun hadn't come out then, it would have changed nothing on SmackDown.
No, exactly.
And then when he came out as number 30 in the Royal Rumble, that would have been a surprise. I'm not sure whether it would have changed, like, oh, okay, it's just Braun, but just the fact that you wouldn't have been thinking about him might have got a better reaction. I don't dislike Braun Strowman. Um, he adds something to wrestling by being this really big, like, unstoppable force type thing. And he's always going to have interesting dynamics with other wrestlers, just because wrestlers in general are a little bit smaller than they have been in the past.
Yeah,
And you've got someone like Braun, you've got that good dynamic, but it just kind of took all of the impact out of him returning at number 30 away, because we already knew he was going to be in the Rumble and hadn't appeared in it. It was almost like WWE spoiled their own surprise.
yeah,
It's like
exactly.
they've done a trailer and they've spoiled a big moment, and that's a big problem with movies. I don't want WWE to start doing that. Like, there's a lot of big returns we could have in the future. I predicted a few of them for the Royal Rumble, but there's constantly talk about returns such as John Cena, CM Punk, Ronda Rousey. There will be Becky Lynch at some point, and I do just worry that in the future we're not going to get any of these big surprises because they'll just want to tell us about them before they happen.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the same with Edge winning. If he hadn't been on Raw, him coming out as number one would have been a big a big moment. And him announcing that he was going to be in it somewhat randomly on Raw just kind of felt a little bit odd. It didn't take anything away necessarily, but it was just a curious, why did this happen? Wouldn't the surprise have been better?
Yeah, I completely agree. And just going back to the Edge one, I think for me it was a bit of a surprise because I had Daniel Bryan to win, and I thought you could have had a really good story with Daniel Bryan, the babyface, going against this sort of colossal Roman Reigns figure at WrestleMania. But looking back at it now, like you said, the next day, I actually think Edge is quite a good winner because we don't know 100% that it is going to be Roman Reigns he's going to go against, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But um, there's so many options that you can have. You can have him against Drew, which is a good match. I guess you can have him against Finn for the NXT title, which I don't think is going to happen. It was obviously just a rating, trying to get some ratings, him going down to NXT this week. But you never know. It might happen. It might happen. Stranger things have happened.
So I think the NXT moment was more because obviously last year we had the men's and women's NXT title matches at WrestleMania,
Sure.
and I imagine the same thing's going to happen this year with it being on two nights. So I think sending Edge to NXT was not necessarily a ratings boost because they want more people to watch. I mean, it was that, but I think
Yeah.
it might also have been a case of we want to bring some of the people that watch exclusively SmackDown and Raw to watch NXT, so they're a bit more familiar with the world title picture for when it's on WrestleMania.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're both happy with Edge winning, like I say. And overall, we're pretty happy about the men's Rumble as a whole. Going over to the women's Rumble, I actually preferred the women's Rumble. I preferred it on the night, and looking back at it, I prefer it again. I think it was more entertaining, and the ending of it with Rhea and Bianca Belair, my two picks. But also, I think the two probably biggest stars that are going to be in the future in the WWE, in the women's division, going against it was something really, really cool and something you don't see quite a lot now. It was almost like a Batista and John Cena situation from a few years back for me. But yeah, I really enjoyed the women's Rumble, and a particular highlight for me was Billie Kay. Again, she's the one thing in WWE, the humour, that actually makes me laugh out loud. It's just so funny. I loved it with her resume, going up to everyone that came into the Rumble, um, and Billy and Jilly was pretty epic. I think we both have to agree on that.
Yeah, it was a great moment. But I think with the Billy case of my personal favourite moment was her and Peyton Royce interacting, and
Yeah,
Peyton Royce trying to do the iconic quote, and Billy Kay just kind of looking like, "Oh no, I can't do it because I'm with the Riot Squad now."
yeah, that was really good. The only thing that I would have changed about the women's rumble was the 24/7 title stuff in there. I just felt like it really wasn't needed. I don't like the 24/7 stuff as it is anyway, but yeah, I just felt like it sort of took away from it in a way, but it was still a really good match. I don't know, what's your view on the 24/7 stuff being involved in there?
It's a weird thing, the 24/7 title picture. Just it's just become an R Truth story, and I love R Truth. He's quite funny, and I did think him coming out was a funny moment. But it does maybe it did feel a little weird. At the time I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah,
All the women just kind of looking like, "What's he doing?" Uh, and obviously it tied in with the Alicia Fox kind of history they had. So I thought it was quite funny at the time. I don't want them to do it too often. I do like the humour. I just wish with the 24/7 stuff they would stop just doing roll ups.
yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, at the it's not so much the roll-ups, but at the beginning of it, you obviously had Drake Maverick, isn't it, and a couple of others, and there was an actual story in there that was entertaining and progressed throughout the weeks. But now it just seems to be the same thing. Our Truth comes running out to the ring, and then a bunch of goobers come chasing after him, and it's just so repetitive, and they really, I think it would benefit from putting a little story in there like they did in the early days.
Yeah, I mean I don't mind the random people winning.
Yeah,
It can't devalue the title because the title in of itself is a joke. Um,
it has no
there
value.
are a few other there are a few other similar titles in other promotions, and I can't remember which promotion it has. There's one of them that was once won by a mop. So someone was on the floor and a mop fell on them, and the ref counted it, and then the mop was the champion. Um,
Amazing.
and that's just funny. So maybe WWE need to really just go all in with the ridiculousness of the 24/7 title. But I want them to keep this forever because I truly believe this is the only way I have a chance of ever winning a WWE title. Just I'm setting it as a dream to one day be the 24/7 title. One day be the 24/7 champion. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You've got to have something to look up to. You've got to have something to aim to. So you go for it, man. You go for it. But I think we're both happy with Bianca Belair winning. I think she was the obvious choice at the beginning and before the Rumble. I think a lot of people would put their money on her to win, but sometimes the obvious choice isn't a bad choice. I think she was the right winner, and a potential match against Sasha Banks at WrestleMania is mouthwatering. It'll be awesome.
It does seem like that is the way they're going with it. She didn't appear on on Raw, so I feel that they are going in the Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks direction, which should be a phenomenal match. They're both really talented, and the only question is they are both faces at the moment, so that makes it a little bit more
They are,
difficult.
but they don't necessarily have to have a heel in there. You can have a good face versus face match. Just coming away from the Rumble matches themselves, the pay per view obviously started off with Goldberg against Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Um, I think the overriding sense after the match was relief that Goldberg didn't win. But I actually quite enjoyed it. It was just a massive sort of big hitting match. I think it went about 2.5 minutes, and it's everything you want from a Goldberg match.
Yeah, it's what we've come to expect from Goldberg matches. It's finishing move after finishing move, and it has its place just for the variety. You don't always need a 30-minute technical match. Just two guys just hitting big moves on each other can be entertaining.
Yeah,
Once you take away from the worry that Goldberg is going to win, um, it is quite entertaining. He's going to hate that I say this, but I was watching it with my dad, and he found it very entertaining just for one of Drew McIntyre's Claymore kicks that it full on looked on a repeat viewing that he just kicked him in the face. I
Yeah,
know there's obviously some kind of method that you do to not get kicked in the face with moves like that, but it generally just looks like he just kicks him straight in the face, which was quite entertaining to notice that.
yeah. Well, your dad does model his haircut on Goldberg, so I'm not surprised that he enjoyed a Goldberg match. Um, Going over to the Universal title, I actually really enjoyed this match. There was a botch at the end, a little bit with the handcuffs, but overall, I really enjoyed the match. There was some big spots. Kevin Owens jumping off the top of a forklift and putting Roman Reigns through a table, and Kevin Owens getting absolutely annihilated by a golf cart.
So we'll talk about the ending because that
Yeah.
was a big moment. There read online that apparently the handcuffs were the wrong way around, and
Okay.
Paul Heyman couldn't get the key in, and he didn't have bolt cutters or anything, which is why it took a bit of time. It did take a little bit of the punch out of the ending, a little bit, because it really, obviously, really slowed the pace down, and then immediately afterwards it was over.
Yeah.
Um, but I won't hold that against WWE. It wasn't an intended thing. It was just kind of, you're always going to run the risk of something like that happening when you're dealing with handcuffs, because if they're real ones, there's no quick way out. Um, so I won't hold it against them too much because the match itself I thought was really good.
Yeah, the match as a whole was really entertaining, and you can't hold the ending against it. It's just one of these things that can happen at any point, but it was definitely the right result for me. Roman Reigns going over.
Right result. I thought it was going to be the end of the story. Obviously, they kind of picked up a little bit on SmackDown, which we'll talk about later. Um, a lot of people have said with the golf cart moment was just stolen from AEW. I think Matt Hardy tweeted the gif of him doing a similar spot during the Royal Rumble, and a lot of people were calling on it. I don't. I didn't think of it as it being stolen. It might be. It's just nothing's really original in wrestling. And Roman Reigns' family have a history of hit and run related spots. So I kind of took it more as a reference to that when it first happened. But I don't watch AEW very often, so maybe I wouldn't have noticed that. But
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm a pretty big fan of AEW and watch it quite often. Um, and my initial thoughts when it happened was, oh yeah, that's what happened in AEW when Sammy Guevara got run over by a golf cart. I just realised how ridiculous that sounds as I'm talking. But anyway, um, yeah, I think I think like you say, nothing's really original in wrestling now. Everyone's doing each other's moves.
I'm pretty sure actually when I was looking at it, there was a WWE golf cart moment like from years ago. So yeah, like nothing's original really.
Well, as everyone knows, the originator of the golf cart in wrestling was Kermit White. So Matt Hardy copied Kerwin White. You heard it here
I,
first.
I
But
actually
anyway,
think the thing thing was before Kerwin White. Let's not talk about Kerwin White. No one needs to talk about Kerwin White.
no, no, no. Anyway, as a whole, a really enjoyable pay per view. Um, I think there's more ups than downs, and I'd say yeah, really enjoyable, and looking forward to see what comes from it.
Yeah. Talking about what came from the Royal Rumble, shall we jump over and talk about the this week's shows for WWE?
Monday Night Raw.
So this week, I think Raw had quite a good show following the Royal Rumble. The the follow-on show for the big pay-per-views normally are quite entertaining, and definitely feel this one had a lot more good stuff than bad stuff. Is that something that you think?
Rarely, yes, I would agree that this was an enjoyable episode of Monday Night Raw, and it's strange for those words to come out of my mouth.
Yeah, Raw always feels uh, like a little bit of a challenge, even when it is good to watch, just because of it being 3 hours. I know when you cut adverts out, that probably goes down to 2.5 hours, but that's still a feature length movie every Tuesday evening for us in the UK. Um, but I was quite entertained. Again, we'll start with something bad, just because there's less of it, and let's get the bad over out of the way before we start with the good. And the main bad story on Raw for me, and it's been going on for a while. It's not exclusive to this week. It's the Retribution story,
Yeah,
and I feel like I see where they're going with it. It's going to be Kofi versus Mustafa Ali as a kind of blow off match once Kofi is recovered from his broken jaw, I believe. But Retribution have had a horrid time basically since they got given names, but it just felt like they had the rug pulled from underneath them then, and they just don't know what's happening with them, and it is just now a part of the show that I kind of switch off, and I'm not really invested in it. And it's nothing against anyone that's involved; they're all talented. It's just what they're being given to do. It just isn't really that entertaining at the moment. And I like the idea behind the story of Mustafa Ali being annoyed that when he got injured, Kofi stole his moment, which should be a really good story, and yet for some reason it's just not landing.
I see where you're coming from, and I completely agree that Retribution just haven't got started. And from locking a referee in the toilet to being given awful names, it's just it's really really bad. However, just picking on something you said there, the story in itself with Mustafa Ali being angry at Kofi Kingston for taking his spot, I think is actually a really good basis for a story. And if they do develop it right, Mustafa Ali and Kofi Kingston are both really, really, really good wrestlers when it comes to it. And if you somehow manage to resurrect, I don't know if you can resurrect something that was never alive in the first place, but anyway, if you somehow manage to make Retribution into something that is watchable and not as goofy as hell, there is potential, I think personally, for a WrestleMania opener of Kofi Kingston against Mustafa Ali, because I just think it would be an absolute banger.
I fully agree that when those two eventually have a match, which I'm sure is going to happen,
Yeah,
it could be amazing. If the worry is that it will just be given a spot on Raw and it will be a 5-10 minute match, which will still be good, but it just won't be given the drama that normally gets given to pay-per-view matches.
yeah, exactly that. And it's a big step from where we are now with Retribution in their current state to getting Mustafa Ali to where he needs to be to open WrestleMania. So it's a big ask, but it is possible. Is all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
they're both talented. It's just whether the story can be just injected with a bit of oomph to make people interested. I'm sure there are people that are interested in this story and are enjoying it. It's just something that's not quite there. It's hard to explain, but
I think it's mainly just being burnt by Retribution so much. There's been a few times where you think, oh, maybe Retribution could be something, but then they've just been so underwhelming. I don't even think underwhelming is the right word for it. It's just you can't take them seriously. Just can't take them seriously. I think that's where the problem is.
yeah, that's kind of hit the nail on the head there. They've not been given the right booking to be taken seriously, and we're kind of still expected to take them seriously, and that's kind of a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So, is there any negatives you'd like to talk about?
Okay. So it was. It's Alexa Bliss. I enjoyed her match with Nikki Cross. However, at the end of Raw, when she appeared, I don't mind her appearing as such, but the black goo coming out of her mouth, it's just laughable. It almost looked like, those old chewing gums that you get that had the gooey stuff in them. I can't remember their name right now, but you'd chew them and they'd have like flavour in them. It looked like she put the whole pack in there, and it was just spilling out of her mouth. But that's the only negative that I'd give Raw this week that we haven't picked up on. It just wasn't for me. But I did enjoy a match. I enjoyed a match, and I'm starting to warm to the costume changes throughout the match that are like, ooh, spooky. But yeah, the ending wasn't for me.
I didn't really make much notes on the Alexa Bliss segment for this week. Obviously, I was very disappointed at how she was eliminated from the Royal Rumble, mainly because I'd picked her to win the Royal Rumble. And the bits on this, they kind of didn't feel important, even though it did end the show. It just kind of felt like it just something to show that this story is continuing. So I didn't really make any notes on it. It's just more of to me it was a just remember this is still happening, because obviously there was no Fiend at Royal Rumble, and kind of the Randy Orton story was more around Edge. So I just took it as that they're just trying to remind us, make sure we don't forget that he is still in this feud. Although someone did point out to me that at the moment Randy Orton is not in a feud with the Fiend, because the Fiend is gone. He's in a feud with Alexa Bliss, and there's not, for a while at least, been a feud between a man and a woman in WWE. So it's new ground almost for booking this, of how you keep it going when they can't really do much. Like Randy Orton can RKO Alexa Bliss, and Alexa Bliss I guess could do the Sister Abigail to Randy Orton, but they're not going to have much interaction physically, so they're having to do things like Alexa Bliss is goo blood thing this week. It did seem a little weird, but I feel like it's just they're just trying to keep the story moving forward without devoting too much time to it this week, which I think was a smart decision. It didn't need a whole big moment. I actually thought just the weird moment they had when they crossed paths on the entrance ramp was going to be the only moment.
That probably would have done it for me as well, to be honest. But I think that it's pretty obvious there is a subtone that the feud Randy Orton is in with is with the Fiend. And
yes.
Come WrestleMania, that's probably where the blow off's going to be. And I think it's a matter of time before the Fiend comes back now.
Oh yeah, sure. I thought he was going to pop up in the Royal Rumble, whether as an entrant or just to mess with Randy Orton. And then obviously they did the whole Randy Orton being injured and taking him out. But it's still going to be a good story when it picks up again. So I can see why you wouldn't like the moment. It was slightly weird, but it's been full of weird moments. They've still not revealed what actually happened to Triple H when Alexa Bliss made him disappear a few weeks ago.
He's turned into a news presenter. Everyone changes when they face the Fiend.
But they're probably not going to mention that again.
Yeah, probably not. But if they do blow this off with a Firefly Funhouse match even at WrestleMania, I'll enjoy that. I think it'll be hard though to depict Randy Orton throughout the years, as pretty much his attire since 2004 has been exactly the same, unlike John Cena, who changed quite a lot. But that's a different story. But yeah, I'll enjoy it if it is blown off by that.
They did have that advantage with John Cena in that he had kind of unique appearances throughout time. He debuted in trunks, then he was a rapper gimmick, then he was like Super Cena. So they did have all that. With Randy Orton, it is kind of, he had long hair, then he was basically bald, then he had a beard, and now he's like, it's that would be quite difficult. I imagine they'll do a different kind of different take on it. I don't think it will be like a copy and paste. So I'm sure they can do some interesting interesting moments. So Randy Orton has a lot of quote unquote demons in his past for Bray Wyatt to reference. Moving on, I think the best thing for me on Raw, because although it was a good show, I don't think there was a particular high point. It was just kind of generally good throughout. show. But one of the things I did enjoy was that we are going to do the Drew versus
Yeah,
Sheamus.
absolutely. Yeah, it's something that we said
Um,
in the Royal Rumble predictions podcast that it was a story that we're enjoying. I'm glad they haven't just be done with it. I think it's something that's going to be really, really good.
it feels like it's the right one as well because it's not a big like WrestleMania match necessarily. It could be, but it's not necessarily that.
No, it's
It's
always a
not.
B pay-per-view match. It was never a WrestleMania match. I think Elimination Chamber will be the perfect time for it to go down.
Yeah. Now, if they want to, they could drag it to WrestleMania, put some twists on it. But as it stands at the minute, doing Elimination Chamber is a perfect time because Drew needs someone to face,
Yep.
but there isn't a big story. The only thing I did think though is if we're getting that match at getting that match at Elimination Chamber, who's in the Elimination Chamber? Is Roman Reigns defending his title in the Elimination
I have
Chamber?
no idea. I don't know if it's going to be a number one contender match. It's all I'm thinking. It could potentially be.
Could be. If Edge has picked his opponent by then, we might know. But as it stands right now, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Elimination Chamber.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll.
we'll have to preview that at some point. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen at Elimination Chamber. But one thing I do know is that it's coming very soon because it's 2 weeks until the Elimination Chamber. So it's a lot sooner than I thought it would be.
Okay.
Another thing that I do want to say about Raw in a different topic is that one of my favourite wrestlers from when I was younger has well and truly returned, and he is jacked, and that is my main man, Carlito. He looks awesome.
I knew you was going to say Carlito.
I know, man. Well, he does look awesome. The only bad thing is that he's in a flipping story with Jeff Hardy against Elias and Jackson Riker. I mean, how long's that thing going to go on for anymore? Can't stand it.
That that is a story that feels like it's been going on forever, and also nothing's happened with it. Um, which normally would be a negative, and I would have mentioned it as a negative for Raw, but it had Carlito in it, so you can't say Carlito's return is a negative. Um,
No, I feel like it was almost like a test match for him to be back. Like, oh yeah, let's you returned in the Rumble, you look good. Now let's see what you like in a proper match, and we might sign you to a short-term deal or something similar to MVP.
it could be. Yeah, as I say, we had that with MVP last year. He returned in an amazing Black Panther inspired outfit. Um, Basically got eliminated by Brock Lesnar immediately, and was like, "Oh, that was a interesting return." And then he stuck around for a bit, had a few matches. Didn't think there was going to be anything of it, and obviously now he's part of that Hurt Business story. So in a year from now, who knows what Carlito could be doing? I wouldn't expect him to be world champ.
No.
That would be a bit out there, but he could be tag champions. He could be in a prominent mid card story, and he's been entertaining over the years. He was actually one. He debuted the first time right when I was getting into wrestling, and actually following it. Like, I watched the odd bit of wrestling before then, but around that time when he debuted and was feuding with John Cena was kind of when I got into watching it weekly.
They were good times. I remember going to a Raw taping in Birmingham when I was younger, and Carlito was there. I made a sign at home. I think I must have been probably about 11 or 12. I made a sign at home, and I painted it and everything, and it was awesome. And it said Carlito Caribbean Cool, and instead of the O's, it had apples, and I was proud of that sign. But then when we got to the arena, they confiscated it from us because they were confiscating everyone's signs for some reason. You weren't allowed them in there, so I was gutted, and I never saw it again.
That is disappointing. Yeah. Well, maybe if they return to doing international shows and Carlito's still about, we'll go to one and we'll remake that
Vengeance
sign.
for my sign. Justice
if
for my sign.
I do think it's funny that they brought Carlito back when thematically he's the worst character to have during a pandemic when his whole catchphrase is that he spits in people's faces.
Well, just one blessing was that he didn't spit in someone's face. I feared the worst when he came out of the apple.
Do you have any other things from this week's Raw or just from Raw recently that you would like to talk
The
about?
last thing that I want to talk about on Raw was how good Bobby Lashley looked, and it was awesome to see it. Mainly because I don't like Riddle, but that's a different story. But Lashley just looked dominant, and it looked like the Lashley that we've all wanted to see since he returned a few years back now. He just didn't give a crap about anything. Absolutely dominated Riddle, and pretty much just looked like a badass. And like I say, that's the Lashley that I want to see. I think it's the Lashley you want to see. Um, and I'm looking forward to see where it goes. To be honest.
Yeah, he's looking dominant. Personally, I still don't like the new design for the United States title, but that title does look good on him as well.
It does, it does. But I looked back at the old United States title the other day, and I think I actually prefer the new one. I thought the old one looked dated.
Yeah, it's probably just nostalgia that making me be like, oh, I really liked that one. The match and the story with him and Riddle, it's been going on a little while, and I do kind of wonder where it's going because it does feel like it's something that's been happening for a while, but it is making Lashley look more and more dominant.
Yeah, I mean he's absolutely dominated Riddle now and beat him in matches. Just made him look puny. So I'm hoping that he's done with Riddle now and he just moves on to something new. Because it does feel a little bit stale.
Great story for Lashley. Not good for Riddle. He lost his first name. Now he's just losing matches all the time. It does feel like it's another NXT call up that's not going anywhere. But that's enough about Raw. Shall we move over to the blue side of WWE?
Friday Night SmackDown.
So moving our focus over to SmackDown. At time of recording, it was last night, so fresh in our minds. I thought it was a good show in a whole. It had a couple of things that I really, really didn't like, and we'll get to that. But there was a few segments that I really, really did like as well. So overall, I think it balanced out, and I came away from watching SmackDown entertained and thinking it was a decent show. The show started off as all SmackDowns do, which is not a complaint at all at the minute, with the big dog, the head of the table, the tribal chief, the baddest man in professional wrestling at the minute, Roman Reigns, coming out and addressing Edge and telling him to get his ass out. And as ever, it was an absolutely brilliant promo from the best wrestler in the world at the minute, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
I really liked the opening. Some people don't like it when a wrestling show starts with a promo. Thinks it should start with a match, but I always think as long as it's not too long, a promo can be a good start just to kind of settle in to the show before you get into some of the wrestling. And this was a great one. The best part of it for me was the scared Heyman stuff.
Yeah, he plays it really well.
So there was the look on his face when he was trying to tell someone at ringside like play Edge's music, and they're obviously telling him that Edge isn't here, and he looks like you can see his face drop. It's like, oh no, like he's scared of what's happening. And then there's a bit where Roman like shouts, and Heyman just looks terrified, and that's just great storytelling. We're meant to believe that Roman Reigns is intimidating everyone, except you can't have him intimidate his opponents because then you don't believe them as being contenders. So just having Heyman be intimidated is our connection to why Roman Reigns is scary. Like, people in the main event aren't going to be scared of Roman Reigns because that defeats kind of the purpose of the story, but everybody else should be, and it's just kind of cementing that. It's quite entertaining. So yeah, I really liked that opening. Roman Reigns, we said it last time, but his promos have in this new persona have been great, and this was just another one of him saying, "Well, why shouldn't I be? Like, I'm the main event. Like, if you're not picking me, that's you disrespecting me." And that's been his whole shtick of you don't disrespect him, or you get punished. And yeah, it was a great way to kind of set up the show, because obviously it ended with Roman and Edge, and kind of to bookend the show with that kind of story was something I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, exactly that, and we'll get to the ending in due course. But yeah, I thought it was a really, really strong intro to the show. It firmed up Roman Reigns as a badass, and like you say, Edge turning up late and insulting Roman. It sort of brought me into the story. It started getting the juices flowing, and I was thinking, oh yeah, this could be actually really, really cool. Um, but moving away from the intro, which we both agree was really good, I think the first match on SmackDown was something that I wasn't too keen on because we've seen it for the last couple of weeks now. Dominic Mysterio against King Corbin. It started off with Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio coming out doing their entrance, and Corbin attacking them halfway through their entrance, which was sort of tables turned from last week.
Rey Mysterio in his dad outfit as well.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first time it sort of the mask that Rey Mysterio wears sort of makes him ageless, but seeing him wear those clothes, you sort of think, wow, he looks a little bit old there. But
it was just a strange moment, because obviously he's wearing a Rey Mysterio mask and then just a shirt and trousers. It's like when you have him at the Hall of Fame ceremony, and he's in a suit but he's still wearing the mask. It just looks slightly odd, like they don't quite fit together. I just thought it was funny when he came out.
But the thing is, because you see him in his mask everywhere, you can sort of imagine him going to like parents' evenings and going around the supermarket just wearing normal clothes and his mask. It just makes me laugh thinking about him in situations like that.
Yeah, I'm sure they did a sketch sort of thing once with Kane doing day-to-day things, but just wearing his mask. And yeah, that's a similar thing. Like a wrestling mask outside of wrestling is an odd thing to us. I'm not sure it so much is with luchadors, because the mask is obviously quite a important part there, but there is just kind of that slight disconnect, and just kind of looks quite humorous to see. There was another moment I thought was quite funny in the match. Ray cheating by grabbing his leg was funny to me, just because he crawled from one side of the ring to the other under the apron and then grabbed his leg. It made me laugh. Mainly for how it opened and how it ended. The match itself was a bit.
Yeah, the match itself was pretty much what we've seen for the last couple of weeks. The finish, make you laugh, but it sort of confused me in a way, if that's the right word, because obviously Rey Mysterio and Dominic are meant to be the faces, but that's a very heelish thing to do.
You say that, but are they just referencing Dominic Mysterio's other dad, Eddie Guerrero? Because he used to lie, cheat and steal, and even when he was a face, he would still do that.
Yeah.
There is a history in wrestling of that, and with the whole Dad Mysterio kind of vibe that this segment had, just because of the attire, I kind of took it as like just Rey Mysterio doing whatever he had to ensure his kid won, which is in some ways heartwarming, which does still reinforce the babyface.
I just don't think the finish was for me, to be honest. It wasn't one that I particularly liked, and by no means do I think it's going to lead to Rey Mysterio turning heel, because I don't think he's ever been heel in his entire career. But yeah, it's just one of the things that I didn't particularly enjoy.
No, I think it will be Dominic that turns heel.
Yeah, exactly. A electric chair, Rey Mysterio on his shoulders, and then a Batista moment, thumbs up, thumbs down. Rey Mysterio dropped on his back.
Yeah, something like that. I do want to take this opportunity to go from one funny dad moment to another funny dad moment on the show,
Okay.
which did have me laughing, which was the clip of Bianca Belair's dad's reaction to her winning the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Now, she uploaded a video of her dad's reaction in which he stands first on the table celebrating,
Which is risky in itself.
and then proceeds to, which is risky in itself. I don't think I'd have faith in my table to stand on it and celebrate. But then when he goes to sit back down in his chair, he proceeds to tip the chair over. It's kind of a reclining armchair sort of chair, and it tips over and falls out. Doesn't hurt himself. He gets up and is laughing about it. But just that video that they played when we're talking about Bianca Belair was very funny to me.
Yeah, definitely.
They didn't need to include it, but a little falling over when no one gets hurt is something to chuckle at. So
Yeah, exactly that. And I think another funny moment on the show was who other than Billie Kay herself. Again, made me laugh out loud with what she's doing. She's just a highlight for me. Every time I see her, she's just a highlight. And it's great. It's absolutely great. And long live Billie Kay.
yeah, SmackDown definitely seems to be balancing good wrestling and funny moments quite well at the minute. I have no idea where this story is going to go, but I'm happy to just sit back and find out.
Yeah, and I think they're walking a fine line with this story as well, because strictly speaking, Billie Kay is meant to be the heel character, and the Riot Squad are the faces, but they're sort of on a fine line where the Riot Squad could potentially become heels with what they did to her in the Royal Rumble for a start, denying an Iconics reunion moment, and then sort of outcasting her from the group. It kind of feels like the perspective could be flipped quite quickly, if you know what I mean.
I'm looking forward to finding out what happens with Billie Kay.
Yeah, definitely.
Does this story keep going to WrestleMania, or
I don't know. Well, part of me just hopes that they somehow manage to put Peyton Royce and Billie Kay back together, because I never think they should have broken up in the first place, as they're the only real women's tag team that they have in the whole division. But that might just be wishful thinking. But we'll have to see where it goes. But whilst it's happening, I'm enjoying the ride and enjoying the story that's being told. Yeah. Next up, we had Daniel Bryan versus Cesaro. Need I say anything more?
now this was a great match. I actually missed when Cesaro got hurt. He had a cut on his head.
Yeah.
I actually missed how that happened. But again, these are two guys that are phenomenally talented at wrestling, and they got a chance to show it off. The ending actually happened a little bit sudden. I was a little bit surprised almost. We had a similar one with Sasha Banks versus Carmella at the Royal Rumble, of a submission move happening, and then a tap out quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I do think it makes the winner there look quite dangerous. Wrestling love their out of nowhere finishing moves, and submissions should be no different. Like, if you don't like to do the comparisons, but when you see submission moves in MMA, it's over pretty quick because they're quite dangerous to be caught in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're past the point of a submission move for someone staying in it for like 5 minutes and trying to crawl to the ropes. There is obviously going to be opportunities for that moment, but I do think Cesaro picking up a win quite quickly, not quickly, but quite suddenly, with a submission move, made him look pretty dominant there. And then that interesting acknowledgement of respect to close that match.
Yeah. Is this a Cesaro face turn?
So he's been a heel for a long time.
He has.
So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, what's happening with his character. There's been a lot of talk about his contract.
Yeah.
It's coming towards the end of the end of the contract. So it was interesting that they still gave him this kind of dominant dominant win. Maybe it's their way of being like, oh, look, you're being pushed if you stay with us. But if that's what it takes to get a Cesaro push, I am all for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I did read actually the other day that he signed a new contract. I think it was expiring around WrestleMania time, but I'm sure I read somewhere that he's signed a new one. But yeah, I think at this stage it's harder for Daniel Bryan and Cesaro to have a bad match than it is for them to have a good match.
Yeah.
There was one, I think they had a match a few weeks back, and I know I was complaining about matches being regurgitated, but this is definitely a match that I wouldn't complain about because they're always entertaining, and they never fail to disappoint.
Yeah, if they can be given a pay-per-view opportunity to put on a great match, it should very easily be match of the night, whatever pay-per-view it goes on.
Yeah, exactly that.
I did want to mention it earlier, but while we're talking about Daniel Bryan, there was a segment in the Royal Rumble with him and Riddle, and I do think, just to quickly mention it, they could have a phenomenal pay-per-view match as well. There was a lot. It would be a very technical match, but they did look like they'd be great opponents together. So maybe you could work it a Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Riddle triple threat. Like, I think that would be pretty good. Even though you don't particularly like Riddle, he is a talented technical wrestler. So
Yeah, absolutely, he's a good wrestler. And I think when it comes to Cesaro and Daniel Bryan, leading up to WrestleMania, it'll be interesting to see where they go, because there were two picks that some people, I know you had Cesaro, I think, potentially, as one of your winners for the Rumble, and I had Daniel Bryan. So it kind of feels like...
I was thinking Cesaro, but I actually went for Nakamura.
Okay, yeah.
Who is also involved in that kind of, are they getting pushed, are they just upper mid-card
Yeah,
talent?
there's sort of a big group of them, Nakamura included, that are sort of there, that have had pushes in recent weeks, and you wonder what their route to WrestleMania will look like. Be interesting. I have a bad feeling that it might be one of their ladder matches for the Intercontinental Championship, where they shove a load of people that should be on the card at WrestleMania all in one match. But we'll have to wait and see what happens.
I would rather that than them just not be on there at all, because those matches do tend to be amazing. There was the one that Daniel Bryan won a few years ago. Quite a few years ago now, because it was before he quote retired.
I think that was the WrestleMania that Seth Rollins cashed in on, because I remember it being one of the open air ones, and it was almost daytime.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Wade Barrett was in that as well.
Definitely open air, but I can't remember if it was that one. I didn't look it up before, but yeah, it was definitely a great match. So I think it opened, or it was on the pre-show or something like that, but didn't take anything away from how good it was. So hopefully we do get something, at least something like that. Hopefully something more, but there is only so many matches you can have on WrestleMania.
Well, exactly.
Even with it being 2 nights.
Exactly that. Give me a match with Bryan, Nakamura, Cesaro, Big E, Sami Zayn, and 2 others. I'll be very happy with that. So yeah, that was a good point for SmackDown for me. But the next 2 points that I have about SmackDown, my final 2 points, are the segment with Sasha and Bianca Belair, and throwing in a bit of Reginald and Carmella. Thought it was alright. I didn't really see the point of having Reginald and Carmella in there, to be honest. I thought you could have easily just had a segment with Belair and Sasha. But like I was saying earlier, I think this is the match that they should do for WrestleMania. Straight one-on-one match between those two, I think, would be great. They're both really, really good. And yeah, give me it now. Just announced that Belair wants Sasha, and I'm happy.
I can't really add anything else to it. Again, it was just a bit of a confusing moment with Reginald, because he was really heaping the praise on Sasha Banks.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
So it wasn't bad. It wasn't like it was just a little confusing. But maybe when the story progresses, we'll find out. Bianca's just come off of a great little story with Bayley, and it's pretty likely she's going to pick to face Sasha. So it should be a great match, and presumably will headline the first night of WrestleMania.
I think so. I think that's the way that they're going. Yeah.
I feel like the Edge match is going to be slightly bigger, so that will probably headline in the second night. Which is fortunate that they've got these 2 nights in. They can kind of do that and have two main events. They've had this weird co-main event thing in a while in WWE, and it's never quite felt right.
No.
But with 2 nights, it will work. I think they can put on a decent match. I do question whether the Reginald thing may lead to a Sasha heel turn, but is Reginald going to align with Sasha Banks and then she becomes slightly more heelish as we lead to WrestleMania, just so there is someone to effectively boo? But yeah, confused is an understatement of what was going on with that segment. There were just a few things on SmackDown. SmackDown's normally really, really good, and although it wasn't bad, it was just quite confusing at times for me this week.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like one of those things that you're talking about leads us into the final part of SmackDown, which was the much anticipated confrontation between Edge and Roman Reigns.
I do want to talk about one thing quickly before that.
Okay.
Which was the tag match.
Oh yeah.
With I don't know what their tag team name is. The Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode.
The Dirty Dogs.
The weird thing for me in this match, and I couldn't really focus on the match because of the commentary by the Street Profits.
Yeah.
Was very distracting to me.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that, to be honest. I like the Street Profits in the ring, but I've never liked all of their talking, if for want for a better word. It's just distracting and over the top, and yeah, I think it did take away from the match in this instant.
I don't mind the promos and the backstage segments with them. They're normally at least somewhat entertaining, but yeah, this one just felt strange. I looked away for like 10 seconds or something, and then I missed if the regular commentary team set it up. But when it was just they started talking, I assumed they would be sat on commentary, which is what they normally do, and they normally would have a few quips, make a few jokes, and maybe set up a match by interacting with their opponent. But this time it just didn't do that, and instead we had picture-in-picture that was just a distraction from the match. And for me at least, it just didn't work and felt weird.
No, we're agreed onto that, and now let's move into something slightly better until the very end for me anyway. And that was the face-off between Roman Reigns and Edge at the end of the show. Much like the face-off with Bianca and Sasha, it really got me into a potential match between those two, and I think that's the way that they should go.
Yeah, before SmackDown I did think that was the match they were going to set up. They spent the whole week with Edge trying to hint at who he's facing. He started Raw facing off against Drew McIntyre, or talking to him at least, and then he went to NXT to talk to Finn Balor and Pete Dunne, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
And then obviously we get to SmackDown and he's setting himself up for the potential match against Roman Reigns. I would have said it was certain how they'd been booking it from the opening until Kevin Owens came out, and that just kind of made everything a little bit more confusing, which has kind of been the theme for the entire of SmackDown, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it just made no sense to me. I thought it's all over at the Rumble. That was a pretty definitive ending. There was no need for him to come out and stun a Roman Reigns. It was just completely pointless for me. And I much would have just preferred sort of Roman and Edge to have a confrontation and let that be done and lead towards the match at WrestleMania.
The big question.
So the big question this week in wrestling is Bad Bunny, and is he good for WWE? Twitter has been very divided on this. Now, I personally think that this can only be a positive for them.
I'm not as divided as what you think. Actually, I think that it can be a positive thing if he's used right. We've seen celebrity sort of cameos, if you want, that have worked right in the past, like Stephen Amell a few years back. But then there's also been some, and also Kevin Federline, if you remember, a few years back. That's a celebrity that's been
Did you
used
say
well.
that was a good one? I wouldn't say that was a good one, but okay.
I liked him. Well, I mean, they capitalised on a big star at the time and got viewers in, and I thought it was a pretty good story of John Cena. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, they just need to use him right. I think that it's good that they've got a dude in that's got such a big following and is actually a mainstream name um, at the peak of what he's doing. I mean, I had a little look, and he's got nearly 30 million followers on Instagram. So the more eyes that are on wrestling, it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, the number one streamed artist on Spotify, I think was three. Oh, his album was, I think, with 3 billion streams.
That's insane.
So I think a lot of the debate has been based on people not liking his music. Now, I had never heard of Bad Bunny until the Booker T song, which I actually heard about outside of the world of wrestling. It's not the sort of music I listen to, mainly because I don't speak, I want to say Spanish. I think that's the language of Puerto Rico.
I think so.
But whether you like the music or not doesn't take anything away from the impact someone like Bad Bunny could have for WWE. Because if he had a jump off the top rope to the outside at the Royal Rumble, and presumably will have some kind of WrestleMania moment. I would imagine that's what it's building to. And
yeah,
like, just the chance of people tuning in to WrestleMania to see what he does can only be good for WWE.
Yeah, exactly. And having such a big star will add to the spectacle of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think I need to add is that it sounds like he's going to go all in on a match, because he's already if reports are to be believed, he's already training at the PC as we speak. So it sounds like he's going all in, and that's good, because all of the celebrity fails that have happened in WWE, they sort of seem half-hearted in a way.
Yeah.
So as long as he goes all in, I can only see it being a positive.
So I would have thought how it was being portrayed this week that to expect a Damian Priest and Booker T versus Miz and Morrison match. But if it's Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, well, I talked about it earlier about making him feel like a star. It might not be what a lot of people want for Damian Priest, but him being aligned with Bad Bunny at the moment is just going to get more eyes on Damian Priest, and hopefully that can then be turned into a good story and a good push for him. As long as they don't make him look dominant, I think is the only worry. Like, if he gets a clean pinfall on the Miz, that doesn't do much for the Miz at all. That kind of hurts his credibility. But if Damian Priest takes the Miz out, tags Bad Bunny, who does a jump off the top rope and gets a pin, I think that's fine.
I think that's probably where we're heading, to be honest. I don't think he'll be dominant. I think that's why he'd be paired with Damian Priest, because he's dominant. And then Bad Bunny to do a few jumping off the top rope spots, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm not the exactly excited for a celebrity cameo in wrestling, but it can only be good business-wise for WWE.
And WrestleMania is the time to do it as well, because a lot of people don't realise that it's not just wrestling fans that watch WrestleMania. It's outside eyes that watch WrestleMania as well. It's a massive spectacle, and it's, say if there's a casual fan or someone that doesn't really watch wrestling, that's the show that they're most likely to tune into. And if they see someone that's like an A-lister, if you want, someone sort of at the top of their game that's well known on the show, it's going to draw more eyes, isn't it? And that's what WWE
Yeah.
want at
I
the
mean,
end of
even
the
if you
day.
think back to the early days of WrestleMania with Mr. T, like WWE has always WrestleMania has always been more than just about wrestling. It's its own thing. Um, so I can see why people wouldn't like this, but I think the argument that it does nothing to help them because most Americans won't know who he is, or most wrestling fans won't know who he is missing the bigger picture. And it's like I said, I'd never heard of him. I've never listened to any of his music, other than that the song he sang at Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
But yeah, you brought. He's got listening base of the most people in 2020. More people listen
That's
listen to
pretty
his
nuts.
songs than any other songs in the world, including people like Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, who have big mainstream appeal. So, like, would people be making the same argument if, like, Billie Eilish was doing something at WrestleMania? I don't think. I think people would be like, "Oh yeah, I know who that is." Like, "Oh, this is great." Like, they're getting some attention. Just hope she doesn't have a song as long as Kid Rock from that WrestleMania.
Yeah, oh my God,
No,
God,
no offense
that was a
to
suppressed memory
Kid
that I had.
Rock, but that went on for ages. But I do think
Way
it's
too long.
just because a lot of wrestling fans don't listen to his music. They're very against it. But
What I'd say is there's an E in WWE for a reason, and
yeah,
that's the last thing I'll say on it. It's,
yeah,
if you want to watch wrestling, go and watch and New Japan or something like that. If you want pure wrestling, there's an E in
yeah.
WWE for a reason.
I mean even AEW has learned since it started that it needs to be more than just like hardcore pro wrestling. It needs to have that extra entertainment. Um,
Exactly.
to make you need variety on your show. So
Yeah, exactly that. And I think we both agree that it's definitely a good thing to have
yeah,
such a mainstream star on the show.
uh,
So I'd say we both agree on that. So that's good.
yeah.
And
Um,
if anyone listening does disagree with us for whatever reason, let us know. We want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your opinion. Obviously, all of this is said with the fact that nothing has happened other than he's made 2 appearances. Post WrestleMania, we could have very different opinions on what this, depending on what has gone down. So,
Yeah, and if it's like Bad Bunny versus Drew McIntyre or something at WrestleMania, then I'm against that. I don't want that.
yeah, that would be terrible. Bad Bunny versus Drew McIntyre, and we thought versus Goldberg was bad. Let's not give WWE any ideas.
We all know they listen.
I think that's everything for this week. Um, we've talked a little bit about everything. This week we've been a little bit more of a breakdown of some of the segments, but with how wrestling is at the moment, that was bound to happen with storylines kind of starting at the minute. Um, so if you like the more breakdown format, let us know. If you want a little bit more of general stuff, that's kind of what we were aiming for, but it kind of depends what's happened on the week, what we can provide.
Yeah, absolutely. All I can say is thank you very much for listening. If you listened to episode 1, thank you very much. If you came back for episode 2, thank you even more. And we hope that you've enjoyed episode 2 so much that you'll come back for episode 3, whenever that will be.
If you would like to know when the episode 3 of this podcast will come out and you don't follow us yet on Facebook or Twitter, we can follow us on Facebook at the Figure Fourcast and on Twitter at Figure4UK. We will post updates regarding the podcast episodes as well as any additional content we provide, including punishment videos on both of those. We will also provide regular updates on Twitter regarding our thoughts on weekly shows as well as other things within the world of wrestling that we can't provide during the podcast. But until next time, thank you and goodbye.